Hey, all you submariners out there, welcome back to Cold Waters. This is Matt, and today I'm going to continue on with my elite difficulty career that I started. This will be episode number 6, and in this mission, we're going rogue. I've decided to ignore the orders that we got from the Admiral, which is to load up with Tomahawk cruise missiles and go attack a land base. We're going to ignore that, and instead, we're going to load up with a few harpoon missiles and the rest torpedoes, and we're going to go into the North Atlantic, and we're going to sink as much Soviet shipping as we can until the Admiral realizes we're not going to do his mission and gives us a different one instead. Now, this is something that you can do in your own career if you want. I would suggest doing all the missions, such as Wolfpack missions, cruise missile submarine missions, destroying the Spetsnaz commando submarines, everything like that. I would suggest doing those. But when it comes to like the TLAM mission and the mission where you have to drop off a SEAL team, you can elect to not do those if you like, and actually just do what I'm doing here, which is set yourself up, go out into the North Atlantic, and sink as much shipping as you can. So that's what we're doing now. I've headed out and encountered a group of submarines that are out there, I believe, hunting me. So I've loaded in, and I've had 3 targets already. I'm going to orient myself here. I'm going to set a course which is going to hopefully allow my towed array to get more information about them. And so right now I'm just trying to classify the targets. Looks like the first one is a November.
Submerged submarine.
That's an older nuke boat, which isn't really much of a threat at all. Unfortunately, he is the closest one, so that makes him a little bit more of a threat, but otherwise really not worried about November. Sierra 1 is a Victor 3, and Sierra 3 appears to be a Victor 1. So I have a 3 nuke boat Wolfpack here against me. So I'm going to get as much information as I can. In this case, I've decided that I actually want to make my depth a little bit deeper than it is right now. I want to come down a little bit more below the layer. So I'm going to go down to 800 feet or so. I'm diving deep in this case. And I'm also going to change my heading here very soon so that I can reorient myself for this attack, especially like once this Victor 3's solution shows him as being a lot closer than he was initially. That information makes him a lot more dangerous than that November now. So what I want to do is get myself in a good position to shoot on the Victor 3, and in this case I believe that turning to the right will put me in a position where I will actually be in front of him, and I'd rather avoid that. So I'm going to turn to the left instead. I'm going to go the long way around and come around to be in a position where I can shoot on this Victor 3 from pretty much in his baffles. So we'll skip ahead here to the point where I've finally turned around and put myself in a better position to shoot at the Victor 3. So I'm going to get my weapon going here. So we're going to fire tube 1 at the Victor 3. And now I'm going to fire tube number 2 at the Victor 1. I'm going to activate the weapon farther than normal because I wanted to go past the Victor 3 and hopefully lock onto the Victor 1. And I'm going to fire also a torpedo at the November. So I've got 3 weapons in the water right here on the way. I can see immediately that the Victor 3 had started to ping me with sonar and turned away to evade the incoming torpedo. So he's aware. He was able to hear the torpedo launch. And so it's going to be a little bit more challenging, I guess, to get this guy. So right now, I haven't gone torpedo evasion or anything like that. I'm willing to forego that to be able to keep these wires and hopefully lead them into the target. The Victor 3 continues to ping at me. And it's right about this time where I see evidence of an incoming torpedo. You see it right there show up on the screen, that yellow torpedo icon heading in my direction. So then I realize I've been fired upon and I need to evade. So the first thing I do is drop a countermeasure, a noisemaker, until I can pick up visually where the torpedo is coming from. I drop the noisemaker to attract the torpedo. Now I see the torpedo would be off to my left and coming down to my depth. So I've to evade torpedoes, you want to get going as fast as you can. And because I'm already at 800 feet, I don't have to worry about cavitating even at flank speed. So you can see the torpedo has come around behind me and did lock on. Now at this speed, what I suggest doing is pointing your screw at the torpedo as it approaches you. Then what you want to do is more or less shake your butt at the torpedo and keep making knuckles in the water, which will force the torpedo to go into countermeasure homing and take a long turn. Now as it makes that long turn, you turn as well, and you put yourself in a position where your screw will be pointing at the torpedo when it comes out of its countermeasure homing. So and then once it comes out of countermeasure homing, you make another knuckle in the water, the torpedo goes back into countermeasure homing, and then you turn so that your propeller is going to be pointing at the torpedo when it comes out of its turn, and so on and so on. You continue on with this, and you can keep this going really indefinitely. And with more than one torpedo, I don't have any video of this obviously at this point. I only have this video feed here, but I have in my own campaigns dodged 3-4 torpedoes this way without having to actually change my depth or do any really hardcore maneuvering other than what you're seeing here, right? So I can stay down at a depth where I will not cavitate at full speed and still evade the torpedo. So as you can see, there's really no stress involved, and during this time I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention to the other targets, such as the Victor 3, the November, and the Victor 1. But I am still getting messages from sonar advising me of what's going on. So you can see the torpedo here, the yellow torpedo going around in circles. Right now it's in acquisition mode. It doesn't have me. It's going around hoping to find a target. And you'll see here very soon after this, the torpedo detonates because it is no longer, it ran out of fuel, it ran out of energy. So the Victor 3 just got taken out by the torpedo I launched at it. That happened too right then. And the
fire control.
excuse me, the second torpedo I fired, or the one I fired at the November, it is locked on. Unfortunately, it's going to miss this time. No, actually it hit this time. Sorry. Yeah, I cut right to the chase once again with the editing software. I can cut right to the chase. So, yeah, that was a shot of the November getting hit, and I did miss a few weapons on the Victor 1. He unfortunately was able to evade 2 of my weapons, so I wasted 2 of them, which I really hate. But here's a weapon. Here's one of the ones that missed him. You can see that it didn't have him, and then all of a sudden it picked him up because he started cavitating. Turn in his direction, then all of a sudden gets sucked up on the corpse of a sinking submarine. I believe the Victor 3 or the November, one or the other. The torpedo gets sucked up on that and ends up going down to the ocean floor and exploding itself. So I need to fire a 3rd torpedo for this Victor 1. Is doing his level best here to avoid getting taken out, and he's getting lots of luck along the way.
Make turns 4, 5, 9.
So I'm going to fire one more torpedo at this Victor 1, who is maneuvering somewhat erratically here, going north-south He's heading west, but he's turning to the north and south as he does so as well.
Shoot 2-1.
So I'm going to launch
Aye,
one
sir.
more torpedo, and then we'll just skip ahead to the point where this Victor 1 takes
fire
it.
control,
So
weapon acquired.
just locked on. Victor 1 is cavitating still. We'll watch this torpedo as it approaches. And as you can see, I still have the wire, so it's a lot more of a chance that this time it's just going to be the one that this is going to be the killing blow. So he's aware, and I've also, activated the weapon, turn on active sonar to ensure that I have the best possible solution. We're going to speed up some time here so that the torpedo arrives a little bit quicker. Then once he releases a noisemaker, I'll take over control to make sure that the torpedo is heading in the right direction. And as you approach this way, it's kind of a bit of a guessing game which side of the torpedo of the boat the torpedo is going to arrive when it gets there. So he's jinking around or whatever, never quite sure which side is going to be exposed. So you kind of have to adjust. So we've hit the Victor 1. He's on the way down, and that's it for the first engagement. What to take away from this, I'm glad that I was finally able to show you all an example of torpedo evasion, which, believe it or not, up to this point, have not been able to show you. I have yet to be. That was the first time that I was actually fired upon in this campaign, this far into it, and this is the first time that I've been fired upon. So I go into the Barents Sea looking for trouble, and I find it pretty quick. I get pounced on there from the east. So I'm going to make sure that all my tubes are reloaded properly. I'm going to close to 15,000 yards and initiate combat. Immediately, the target that I have, or the sonar contact that I have, disappears. So no longer on the TMA. So I'm going to turn myself until I regain that contact, and then try to classify it. Going through the catalog here.
Sonar, Sierra
Until I'm finally able to classify that as an alpha.
Submarine.
So an alpha nuclear attack submarine, which is a very fast but loud submarine. So I am classified as alpha, bringing myself around to an attack position here, and also trying to increase my solution. Now I've got it up to over 70%.
Aye, sir.
That's way more than enough for me to be confident to shoot. So I've got the alpha dead to rights. I fire. There's no indication that he has heard that shot, and that's good, because of all submarines, the alpha is the one that you want to make sure that your torpedo gets as close as possible, because if he hears it from long enough away, he can just turn tail and run. Now you can see that as soon as the weapon went active, it was able to lock on to the alpha. So he was a lot closer than he seemed to be, which is the recurring theme in these videos. So right now, I've got a great contact on him because the weapon has locked on, and I believe, 95% here. And he's cavitating, going as fast as he can, but because I have the wire and I'm able to steer it, there's really no danger he's going to get away. So we're just going to guide the torpedo in and hit him somewhere amidships,
Sonar lost
cause as much
contact.
damage as
Sierra
possible. So
1,
that
bearing
weapon took out the
0,
alpha.
7, 6, contact breaking
I'm going
up.
to reload the tube here shortly, and we will get to hopefully encounter any more escorts, any more of his colleagues that were around. But you see that the ambient noise is very loud. We're talking over 100 decibels, well over 100 decibels here. So hunting submarines in these conditions is going to be very, very difficult, because just the ambient noise being what it is. So I've picked up another contact, Sierra 2. I'm not able to necessarily classify this contact before the contact is lost, which is going to happen here very soon. So whatever it is that I picked up was just kind of a transient noise, something that was something that was just temporary. So I wasn't able to keep that contact. It still shows me on the TMA map where the contact was, but I no longer am able to, do any work classifying it because I no longer have that contact. So what I'm going to do in this condition, and at any time that I'm searching for a contact and I have the general idea where they may be, I'm going to approach so that I can get as much use out of my towed array as I can. So instead of going I want to get as much use out of my towed array as I can while still making progress at approaching the target. So instead of going perpendicular to the target, not getting any closer, I'm going to advance on it at about 45 degrees or so. I'm going to zigzag 45 degrees, then 45 degrees back, then 45 degrees back and the other way, so that I can get the most use out of my towed array while still making the most progress. So it's a good compromise. Instead of being totally sideways on and not making any progress, I'm going to still move towards the target while at the same time using my towed array. So in this case, by the end, I was still not able to pick up Sierra 2, so I decided, since this is not really a mission I need to do, I'm going to leave right now. It doesn't show any vessels in the area. I guess it was a Victor 2 that was Sierra 2, and he escaped, but that's fine since I don't really need to be here anyway. So now we have another contact. They're coming fast and furious now. Bearing 33, and my heading is 207. So he's going to be off by 190 degrees or what have you. So
rig ship for ultra quiet.
Sorry, 170 degrees. I can't math today apparently. So we start at periscope depth, and I'm going to put myself in a position where I may be able to pick up this contact more easily, because the way it is now, he's going to start in my baffles. So I want to turn and change my orientation so that my towed array can get a look, hopefully get a look at him, or hear him, sorry, not gonna look, hear him. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm orienting myself so that my towed array can have, hopefully have the best chance of hearing anything that's out here. And very soon after starting this turn, I do pick up a contact. I'm gonna classify it here, and let's see what it is. It seems like close to a Charlie, so it's probably a Victor, because the Victors and the Charlies are built off the same basic boat design. So we're going to say that is a Victor 1. Another Victor 1. Alright. So I'm going to come around here to get myself in a position to shoot on this Victor 1, which it looks like actually lost the contact, but doesn't really matter. I'm going to shoot in the general direction of the Victor 1 anyway, knowing that he's probably not far from there. And once again, we're dealing with ambient noise here. This is 107 decibels, right? So this is very, very challenging as far as getting any sort of sonar contact. So at this point, the torpedo has gone past the point where we thought the Victor 1 would be. It still hasn't picked anything up, but we're going to just keep the torpedo moving in that direction along the same bearing, and hoping that eventually we will encounter that Victor 1. So it's a bit of a gamble here. So we're going, and all of a sudden you see the torpedo make a huge change in direction, and the Victor 1 was 45 degrees or more to the torpedo's right, and it still picked him up. It was still able to find him and lock on. So that's something to take away from this part of the video, is that these Mark 48 torpedoes are extremely forgiving as far as being able to acquire targets fairly far away from where you initially targeted the weapon, right? So now, because we have the wire still, I'm able to steer this torpedo towards the target, which I'm going to do. Because the torpedo is active, I have a great solution on them, so I don't feel bad doing that. We're just going to steer this into the Victor 1 midships that's it for the Victor 1 taken down. And because this mission, the noise was so high, we've missed 2 targets, but I don't think one of them's the Sierra. It's possible the Alpha we could have picked up had we stayed a little bit longer, but the Sierra being a much more quiet and capable boat, I don't think that we would have been able to find him in a timely manner. So instead of wasting a bunch of time in those conditions that aren't favorable, I just quit the mission after doing that, because I know it's not something the Admiral wants me to do anyway. This is all freelance, we're going rogue, so it doesn't matter if I get all the submarines and all the boats anyway. I'll just do whatever I can, and then once it becomes not worth my time, then I'll, quit and go to hopefully get another target. So here comes somebody else. Bearing, so, like about 20 degrees away from our heading right now. I'm going to make sure that I'm loaded up properly, close to 15,000 yards, and launch this
Rig ship for ultra quiet.
mission. So we've picked up a target right away. Appears to be pretty close. So the first thing I want to do is to classify the target. It looks like an Alpha, another Alpha. Maybe remnants of the previous group that I ignored, right? So here it's an Alpha.
Is classified as
shows as being,
submarine.
less than about 6,000 yards away, about 6,000 or so, and that's super close, a lot closer than I'd like, and he appears to be heading right for me, honestly. So I'm going to turn in the direction of that target, and almost immediately I'm going to fire upon him because he's way closer than I would like. I'm going to adjust my depth first, though, so that I can come out below the layer. Here that you can see the Alpha is actually below the layer as well. So I'm gonna descend to be below the layer. I've picked up another contact, which is I believe a Victor 3.
Sonar Sierra 2 is classified as
I think it's a Victor 3,
submarine.
yeah. So we've classified that contact as well on the way down. But for right now, the Alpha is the primary concern because he's the closest and the most dangerous to me right now.
Steady course.
So I've come around to a point where I feel like I can shoot on the Alpha while still keeping the wire, so I'll do so. Set the activation rate to the 1,000 yards. As soon as I fire, the Alpha does start pinging me with sonar, so it appears he is aware of my presence. So knowing that, I want to immediately, well, no, not immediately, shoot on the Victor 3 because he's a little bit far away, honestly, at this point. I'm not really sure if it's a good idea or not, but
Aye, sir.
I guess I've decided to shoot on him after all.
Fire
That's what you
control,
get for
weapon
not
acquired.
watching the video beforehand. So yeah, I did shoot on the Victor 3. I think I was gauging, or I was betting on the fact that he would be closer than he appears. So the first weapon has actually acquired the Alpha already and is heading in that direction. The Alpha is cavitating and trying to evade. But with the wire, once again, shouldn't be any problem getting this guy. I try to let the torpedo do most of the work until it gets in pretty close, and then I'll adjust as needed. Because sometimes I'd like to really avoid the torpedo getting kicked around for another pass because of countermeasure homing, because that's always a possibility the wire will break, which is something you want to avoid at all costs. So I'm somewhat steering it right now, trying to get the Alpha midships, and I do. That takes out the Alpha. Now, I'm going to focus on weapon number 2, which is the Victor 3, and as you can see, looks like has been reclassified to be a little bit closer than initially thought. Keeps moving in, and it looks like either the Victor 3 is actually moving in my direction, or sonar keeps reclassifying. So we're getting a better solution now. Looks like the Victor 3 is actually moving in my direction
Come right to
at a fairly significant
LI.
clip here. I'm trying to move in towards the Alpha, I believe, to see what the heck just happened to his buddy. So that's great. So we've locked on now to the Victor 3 with the torpedo. He's just heading right for me. Not, literally damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. That's exactly what's happening right now. And I don't believe, well, I think he knows, but I'm not really sure why he would take this tactic, because this is going to be a full head-on collision, and he's not even going to try to turn. I guess spoiler alert, but that's exactly what's going to happen. He's going to take it right in the teeth, and well, fair enough. Thanks for the easy kill, I guess. Yeah, not even an attempt. Not even an attempt to avoid. Ran right into it. I'm not going to complain. All right, so after that, I've skulked around a little bit, seeing if there's any more targets. I didn't believe there were, so I'm going to leave combat. And as far as this goes, I got both targets that were on this mission. So I'm going back out to the map. Another target coming up to meet me. Bearing 325, and my heading is 153, so it's going to be one of these situations where they're pretty much going to be behind me when the mission starts. I'm going to orient myself, hopefully, to have my towed array be in a position to pick them up. So I'm going to change my course
Come right to
so that I can pick them up, hopefully.
Dive at
I'm skipping ahead a little bit, changing my course, making after searching for a little bit here, trying to find any sort of target, and you know, the ambient noise is fairly high, but not that high. I've dealt with a lot worse than that. So I'm changing directions, I'm zigzagging, I'm trying to orient myself in all sorts of directions to pick up any sort of contact, and I still can't pick up any sort of contact. I messed around for 15-20 minutes hoping to find somebody. Couldn't find anybody. So finally, in the end, I decided, you know, it's not really worth my time here to stick around looking for whoever's out here. They obviously don't want to be found, so I'm going to leave the mission. And we find out that it was actually a Tango and a Romeo. So we're dealing with two diesel-electric subs. Whatever, I'm not really too worried about that. Because it's not my mission, I don't get penalized for leaving it a little bit early. So, still back out in the Barents Sea. I'm putting myself in a position where the Maritime Patrol aircraft will see me for sure. And so we get picked up by another group. Looks like they're going to be fairly close to in front of us in this mission here, just a few degrees off. So we pick up a new contact right away, Sierra 1. I'm going to classify that immediately. Working my way through the catalog here. Doesn't seem like anything I've seen so far. Not a Victor. Looks like it might be a diesel-electric boat, actually. Maybe a Romeo, Foxtrot, Romeo. See what we classify it here. I think it's a Romeo. Yeah. Right, so we'll classify that as a Romeo.
Con sonar
Or
Sierra
Foxtrot.
1
No, Foxtrot, sorry. And we'll classify that as a Foxtrot, and I'll operate on that assumption right now that that's what it is. He's about 15,000 yards away, which is fine. No worries. Well within the range of the Mark 48 torpedo. I happen to be pointing like right at him, so there's no point in me delaying any longer. Solution at 40% or higher. I feel confident enough to fire this torpedo, and that we will be able to firm out the solution as the weapon heads in his direction. I'm going to adjust my depth at this point after having launched the torpedo. I'm going to adjust my depth to go below the layer, so the torpedo will stay at the depth that I launched it as it approaches. Meanwhile, I'll go below the layer, which will make me a lot harder to detect, which is a great technique to use. You could launch and hide under the layer. Either that, or you launch below the layer, hide above the layer. However you want to do it. Either way, you mask yourself in that way. You could and you could also fire the torpedo below the layer if you want, and have it come up after. You know, it comes down to personal preference. Whatever works in that situation is fine. In this case, it just so happened that I was able to fire above the layer. And you see, as soon as I go through the strong layer, I lose my contact with that Foxtrot. But you know, it's not that he's not there, I just can't hear him, so that's fine. The torpedo will continue on its course, which
sonar regained contact on Sierra
it's
1,
doing right now. See, I've just regained the Foxtrot after going a certain depth. I was able to finally regain the Foxtrot, and the torpedo locked on at the same time. So I'm going to steer this one in to make sure. It's obvious he does. He is aware that the torpedo is incoming because he's maneuvering. So we'll just guide this in here. Watch the torpedo approach. There's no chance for this guy, really. There's nothing he can do at this point. As the maneuverability and the speed of this torpedo way outstrips his own. So in a diesel electric sub, you know, there's really not fair combat between a Los Angeles class and a diesel sub like this. So almost there now.
Noisemaker bearing 176.
He's released a noisemaker, so I'm going to steer the weapon back towards him. I'm going to steer it back in his direction.
Fire control, weapon
And
acquired.
this should be it. No more fooling around for this guy.
Con sonar lost contact.
Foxtrot, and that's it for this
Last
mission.
bearing
And that should be it, about it for this
177.
episode
Contact
too.
bringing
I'm
up.
just going to back out of here and reload the weapon, I believe. Watch him sink a little bit. Right, so we're back out. I don't believe there's any more. Yeah, there was one more torpedo, one more submarine. It was a Romeo, or a Tango out there, somewhere, but was not able to find him and decided it wasn't worth my while to do so. So we're gonna save the game here and continue on with going rogue in the next episode. We're just gonna take a look at the summary screen here quickly before we do. Up to this point, sunk 297,000, almost 298,000 tons of Soviet shipping. And so I'll put a stop to this video here, and we'll get back. I'll release another one here soon within the next couple days. Thanks for stopping by, and have a great day.